This situation is not described in our literature. The PMBOK guide still, between the lines, assumes that procurement is more an exceptional situation. We have to justify it. Yeah, it is not. It was the last process, last knowledge area over 20 years or so. Then another one was put after that, stakeholder. But it's still at the end. It's not at the beginning.
Hi, this is your Project Management Cowboy, coming back to you with another Project Management Cowboy podcast. I have the pleasure of introducing another Project Management Cowboy, all the way from Munich this time, Oliver Lemann. He'll introduce himself in a little bit more detail. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things, a lot of things that I find interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about the books you wrote, which is great. We're going to talk about a new perspective on project management called Project Business Management, which is one of those obvious things. I think when you guys listen to him, you'll realize it's something, we're actually doing that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about AI.
Yep.
Okay. I'm really thrilled to have you as a guest because just like me, classical PM cowboy, you don't have a tendency to hold back with your opinions.
Not really.
That's going to be good. Oliver, where do we know each other from?
We met many years ago in Vienna, first time when you had a conference, when you were president of the Vienna chapter. I was the vice president members of the Munich chapter. Yeah. Later I became president too, but this was the time when you were already gone. Yeah. And I came over for this event. I think you invited me to the event. And this was the first time that we met in person. We had been in contact before that, and I think we met shortly somewhere in a conference.
Me from the moment you
the first moment, yes, of course. No,
we're very similar in style. I always like to start off podcasts when I have guests. If you go onto YouTube, you find a lot of interesting people that have interesting things to say, but you never really hear anything about their background. I call it the passion journey.
I was, as a much younger man than today, of course, I was in automotive industry, engineering, chemical industry at the same time.
So you learned something serious.
I learned it by doing. Okay. I originally studied German and history, and somehow I never became a teacher at that time. Yeah. Meanwhile, I am a teacher again, and for adults, for grown-ups. So I started then in automotive industry and similar production environments. Did their projects. And how did I become a project manager? I didn't even notice that I was in project management. I was in projects, and we had a project manager. They didn't have the term by that time. We didn't have this term. But we had a project manager, and it would have been that person's job to phone a customer, to tell the customer, hey, our delivery comes late, or to talk to a contractor and say, hey, where is this delivery from you? When will it come? Yeah, you're late, and so on. And it would have been the problem of the project manager to do that, the job of the project manager. But they didn't do it. So I had to do that. Oliver, you have such a good relationship with these people.
So you were the classic facilitator.
I was the classical accidental project manager.
Mach doch mal, as we say in German.
Yes, exactly. Mach mal. And then and I had two problems. One problem was this wasn't really my job. So my job was really a bit coming short. I had not much time for that. And the other thing is it was a lot of fun. I love organizing things. And then I had a problem. I became single parent with my first wife. So I had a boy at home, 10 years old, and I couldn't do my project management anymore. I was in automotive. This means traveling, all the time traveling. Yeah. So I had to find a new job, and my idea was to start with as a trainer. And my first seminars by that time was more software training, and I was very deep in configuration management. No one knows today anymore what that is.
I do.
You do? Project configuration management in particular.
Nobody knows what that is, I agree.
Nobody knows what it is.
Important thing, but nobody knows what it is.
It would be so helpful. And then over time, this was the time when project management came up, and it became more and more important. And this was then the time that I said, okay, I'll go from software and from more exotic topics like configuration management, I'll move over to project management. And it was just the time when it took up. And so I was there at the right moment. In 2001, I became certified, had still the same year my first certification class in Switzerland. Yeah. And since that time I do that.
Just in case anybody wants to know which certification, obviously
PMP,
only one.
PMP.
The only one that counts, right?
Yeah, we don't talk about other certifications here. Yeah. And that's how I began. And I've been doing that now for 20 something years. Yeah. It sounds a bit oldish, yes. I'll have my my birthday party weekend after next week, yeah. And the topic will be Route 66.
Very good.
Guess why?
Because you're a 66?
In an American restaurant, restaurant.
Oh wow!
Restaurant, yeah.
Very good.
Rattlesnake Saloon in.
We're in of the same age category.
Really?
Yeah.
Category.
I'm also 66.
You're 66.
Yes, I'm 66.
But your hair is much darker.
Yeah, I diet. No,
you diet.
I don't. Good. So you kind of inadvertently came to project management. Were you?
As almost everyone.
Like everybody. So you weren't trained before you did it.
No.
So when you did get trained, were there any aha experiences?
When I got trained for the examination, there were a lot of aha experiences.
What were they?
That I did things right, and now I learned it was done just coin flipping, yeah. And it's a method. It has a name, yeah. I had things.
There's
like
names to call it.
It has a name. Work breakdown, WBS. I didn't know that it's called WBS.
Yeah.
I just had that because this was
made sense.
A good say. Made sense exactly. Yeah. And now I learned that this is a method and it has a name and books that and everything on that. And other things that I learned was I should have known this 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. It would have helped you.
I would have had less trouble 4 years ago if I had not made certain mistakes. So you learn from the mistakes and you learn from the successes. And I think you learn still more from the mistakes than from the successes. Yeah. But that's what you then do. You consolidate this fragmented knowledge that you gather.
But you like myself, you're also a consultant in project management, right?
Rarely. Sometimes companies ask me to give them some help and give them some consulting, but I see myself as the trainer.
Okay.
I am the trainer.
So you train people in anything that has to do with project management, program management, portfolio management, PMOs?
I did that. I haven't done this for a long time, but I did that in past too.
Okay. And then you got strongly involved with the PMI chapter in Munich, right?
It's meanwhile Germany, because we renamed it into Southern Germany chapter because we had Baden-Württemberg and Bavaria, so quite a big area. And then there was a process to merge these 4 chapters that we had by that time. So the Germany chapter was founded, and by that time I was no more president, but I was part of the initiation process for that, no more of the ending process.
Okay. Yeah. Let's jump into the first topic. Situative project management. Situational. Okay.
You're getting to German.
I'm getting to German.
Is German, Situational project.
Situational project management. What the heck is that?
What it means is, first of all, I wrote a book on that. Yeah. And
we'll put it in the link and put it on the screen so you can see it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. You can buy it on Amazon or directly from the publisher. I cannot sell it to you because it's big publisher and they have the right to sell it. Yeah. So what it is, it's a question that came up I wrote it in 2016, and this was a question where I got a bit, what should I say? I was a bit frustrated.
It's always a good place to start.
That's a good place
creative.
To start being creative when you're frustrated about something. And what I was frustrated about was that we were in project management going to impoverish our toolkit. The impoverishing of our toolkit.
What do you mean with impoverishing the toolkit?
People unlearn things they should know. Instead of learning more, they unlearn things. They unlearn more than they learn new. Okay. Yeah. And that's what I mean. We should enrich our methods and our methodical toolkit, and not, that's a difficult word, and not getting impoverished with that. Yeah. And what I mean is it was this black and white thinking that came up. Waterfall and Agile. And this is project management, black and white.
Yeah. And one's dying and the other one's...
Yeah, one is bad and one sucks. Yeah, Waterfall sucks. Yeah. And Agile, this is modern and everything is bad. Yeah. You have to do every project now Agile. You have to develop an Agile mindset. Yeah. You have to be an agile enterprise. Yeah, everything has to become agile. And my impression was it is wrong from two reasons. One reason is project management is not black and white. There is something in between. There are some shades of gray in between. And actually, project management is colorful. It's not just black and white or gray. We have so many colors. We look only at a small aspect of project management when we talk about project management today. And so what I wrote was a book where I said, okay, look, there's on one side Agile, there's on the other side is waterfall, and there's something in between.
Yeah.
You could call it progressive elaboration, you could call it iterative incremental, or you could call it rolling wave. And I personally
or spiral, which is that's the historical.
It's all the same
or
thing.
Plan, Do, Check, Act.
Plan, Do, Check, Act. Exactly.
I think that
PMBOK Guide until 6th edition.
I think now they call it hybrid.
No, that's not the same.
No, why?
That's not the same. Hybrid is not gray. Hybrid is zebra stripes.
Okay.
Or it is a chessboard.
Okay.
You still have black is black, white is white. You somehow mix it up, but in a way that black remains black and white remains white. You don't have a method somewhere in between.
Then I misunderstood something about hybrid because I'm doing it the way it makes sense.
But that's what hybrid means. You mix two things, but if you mix them, black remains black, white remains white. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing in between. So I personally prefer the term rolling wave. I think it's a wonderful term, and it's not my invention. Someone else invented that. Yeah, rollierende Planung in German. And my wish for this book was to give people help in a certain project situation. What kind of approach is helpful? So what you find is situations where agile methods are the best thing you can do. Some research behind that with experts. I had hundreds of years of experience in that with old experts. Yeah, some of them already retired. Yeah, we did this together, and so we can say this is a good moment to use agile methods because you are on a discovery journey. There is something to discover. Then agile methods are very good. In the
can I throw in two thoughts and you can tell me if I'm understanding you the right way? I think one of the things that's always there's a couple things that have always annoyed me. I'm a big fan of the PMBOK guide, but there's a couple things that have always annoyed me.
6 or 7?
Whatever.
No, it's not the same.
Yeah. The last one annoys me more than the one was previously.
Yeah. Good. We're in agreement.
And the clown logo from PMI annoys me too, but that's a different story. One of the things I've noticed in the PMBOK, and I appreciate it because it's very difficult to put it into a PMBOK guide. Two things that we're missing is number one, the concept of scale. Okay. If somebody reads the PMBOK guide who manages small projects, where most project managers start, they get a headache and say, I'm supposed to do all this stuff. Are you nuts? It's overkill. Yes. Right? So there's no scaling, and I appreciate and understand that if you read the PMBOK and if you're experienced, you will have the experience, as you say, to reduce the amount of tools that you need depending on the job, which is the first form of situational. Can I apply what the large compendium, okay, can I scale it down to my needs? That was the first situation. And the second situational thing that I think is missing in the PMBOK guide, it used to be kind of adhered to in the SIGs, special interest groups, you remember, is not everything is an IT project.
Absolutely.
Okay? Not everybody wants to do story points. Not everybody wants to use user stories. Not everybody has user cases. So I think if I hear one more IT person say all projects are IT based, I'm going to get a fit.
Of course not. But I think that's not the main point.
Okay.
That's not the main
So that's not what you mean with situational?
Size is absolutely a big point here. But the other point is, what is the expectation on you as a project manager? The expectation could be you go on a discovery tour. Yeah. If we go together to a city where we haven't been before, tell me a city where you never was. Ever where?
I haven't been to Lisbon.
Never been to another one? Lisbon is a good example.
Yeah.
I've been to Lisbon, but it's a while ago.
Yeah.
So if we go to Lisbon and we say, hey, let's have a look at Lisbon. So what are we going to do? We leave our hotel, and then go right and go left and look what we find. Maybe we have a map, or we have Google Maps today, and say, hey, that could be an interesting point. And then there are little trams that they have in the narrow streets and so on. So we go on a discovery tour. We don't have a big plan for that. We just look what we find.
But we have a budget and we have a timeline.
We still have a budget, and there may be a timeline.
Yeah.
We have to be back at the hotel
at 11 o'clock.
But scope is flexible.
Which is classical Agile.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This would be Agile.
Yeah.
This would be what Agile is doing.
I think research and development is another good scenario
Yeah.
where Agile, I think, is a good application.
You have a seminar in Lisbon, and you have to get there, and you have to be there at a certain day, at a certain time. In the morning, Monday morning at, say, 8 o'clock.
And the topic has been set.
And the topic has been set. And now when you do the traveling there, you have to be well planned because you have to be there on time. Agile has a strength and has a weakness. The strength is you can go on a discovery tour. The weakness is you cannot really produce order and predictability.
Okay.
Predictability and order is the weak spot of Agile. And this is not a criticism. It isn't made for that.
Yeah.
It was never made to bring that. And you have many projects where you need both, where you need to be at some times more agile. You brought as an example software. When you develop software, this is often a discovery tour. You do a discovery tour in the process of the customer and the wishes of the users and of managers, and a bit also in the brain of the developer team. It's called creativity. That's also a form of discovery tour. So you follow a discovery tour and you do it all in little steps. Step by step by step, you move forward. Now, the next moment, you have a big piece of software developed. Now you want to implement that. Agile people say, hey, whatever you have, just deliver it to people. But sometimes you can't do that. There's some old system and you have to replace it with a new system. So what would you do? You would have to bring predictability and order into the software environment, into this implementation environment, because there you have operational people. And they have to deliver predictability and order. And what you do is you disrupt.
Also, you have if it's an external, which is another topic we're going to get to. If it's an external project and you have a contract, most contracts in nature are not agile.
This is our next topic.
Yeah.
But
let me throw an example at you. There's a small German company that has 3 letters in it. Begins with an S and ends with a P.
Yes.
Okay. Love that company. I do some work for them.
I used to work for them too.
Oh, very good. I like them very much. They're an IT company. So almost all their clients, all their product owners, client side, are also IT people. So the first expectation is, we're IT, we have to be agile. Okay.
SAP some years ago developed a program to implement their software using an agile approach. And this is one of the most stupid things you can do.
Well, I think what they're doing is they're accommodating their clients. Okay. But exactly. what I'm saying, and this
doesn't make it more intelligent.
But this is the example that I was going to use in the sense of situational. In reality, if I implement, and it's not the first, and not the 10th, not even the 100th time I've implemented S/4HANA, okay, and I know the best way to implement it. Yes, your client has their own IT landscape, and I have to adapt it. But on the whole, in nature, it's more predictive than it is agile.
It has to be. You have to be predictive. That's the point. The question is not so much what is the project,
but the wording is agile.
What is the expectation on you, and what are the requirements on you? What do you have to deliver? And if you have to deliver a predictability,
a massive
and order,
system.
Massive system, then you cannot do it just agile. It's for the development, of course, and that's what it was originally made for, but it's not for a big implementation, maybe replacing one system with another system or so. That's not what it's made for. And then there's the other thing. What is the most important difference between these methods? It's the planning horizon. If you have a waterfall project, this means you have a planning horizon either at the end of a current phase, because you don't know whether it will go on after this phase. Yeah, there will be some new decisions made.
Are you talking about stage gate or
something?
Or phase gate, whatever the bingo word is. Yeah.
So until the next phase gate or until the end of the project. These are the two typical situations in waterfall. And on the other side, you have agile, which is maximum 4 weeks. Typically, it's 2 weeks maybe. Yeah. So you have 2 weeks planning horizon. And say a year, if the project runs a year, you have a year and you have 2 weeks. So there is a lot of space in between. And this is where we come with rolling wave methods, where we say, no, we have a planning horizon which is reasonable. One reason why we need a certain planning horizon is that we have lead times. Yeah. I have to book people today to have them available next February or so. Yeah. I have to start a procurement process maybe. I have to go through this process. And then I also need the availability of the contractor. They're not just sitting there and waiting for my business. Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah. These are not the contractors you want. That's the other thing. So you have to somehow get yourself placed in their line of customers, when it's your turn. So you have to plan with some lead time. This is something Agile methods can't do. Then you have to have a form of change request management. And again, this is something Agile methods don't have. You need some form of risk management. That's something
I'm going to challenge you on that. Agile doesn't have change management?
I call it change request management.
Yeah, okay. They don't have change request management?
No.
Well,
they have continuous change request handling.
So you're talking, the formalism is gone.
They have no process.
Okay.
They have no process for that.
See, can I throw a thought at you and you tell me whether you agree with me? I've read many books on Agile. I have 2 certifications in it. And I'm a big fan of a lot of the concepts, although I think some of it is old
dangerous.
Old wine in new bags, as we say in German. But when the first time it was from Jeff Sutherland, I read a book, one of those classical books that says in a very American title, do twice as much
in half the time.
Half the time, which is the biggest American bullshit I've ever heard. But it sells good, right? And the book is this thin, so it's got to be very profound. But anyways, I read it, and the first thing, and I've talked about this book several times because it was the first Agile book I read. When I looked at it, I said I agreed with almost all the premises that were in there. I said, but these premises that we have, we've been talking about it in waterfall forever. The same things, the same problems, the same challenges. We might have different solutions with different names, but it's pretty much the same solution. My understanding of hybrid is, this is what I understood. Even in the hardcore waterfall scenario projects that I've worked in the past, we did predictive during initiation and planning. And when we came to execution, we did Agile. We didn't call it Agile, but it was Agile. Okay? And in the most hardcore Agile projects I always irritate my clients because I force them to do a work breakdown structure. And they say, why are we doing a work breakdown structure? That's old-fashioned. We don't do that anymore. I said, because you have to have a roadmap, theoretically, and the only way to get a roadmap, a product backlog doesn't give you the full overview, right? So for me, it's not a question of one or the other. I always say it's not a question between bananas and apples. I want a fruit salad. If you go back to the tool concept, I have a toolkit next door. I have 3 different hammers in there, 15 different screwdrivers.
That's one example.
I pick and choose what I need.
Exactly.
But sometimes on my mood and sometimes based on the work that I have to do. But and this is what I think what the dogmatic discussion around Agile and waterfall does. There's not one solution.
If all you have to do your living is a hammer, then you have to explain the world that it is nailed together. And if all you have is a screwdriver, you have to tell the world that it is screwed.
That's good. I haven't heard that one. I know the version, if all you have is a hammer, then everything starts looking like a nail.
Like a nail, yeah. But what I say is it goes in both directions. It goes in both directions. If all you have to offer is Agile, then you have to explain to the world, hey, everything else is waterfall. And if you want to go against Agile, then you have to tell people, waterfall is right for everyone. No, we have something in between. And the problem with hybrid, with the word, is there is no clear definition what it is. If you look at literature, you find the term used very, very often, but they don't really tell you what it is. So everyone has
I think it's up for grabs.
Yeah, up for grabs,
Way of working, another bingo word.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And
discipline.
Power skills.
Disciplined way of working.
Power skills,
I often say this. I think one of the dangers of this, also this concept that they say in Agile, it's more important to be Agile than to do Agile.
That's it.
Yeah, I often say
it's an ideology. It becomes an ideology.
But I'm like, listen, if you don't do Agile, you can't be Agile. There's a process to everything, and I don't really care whether you call it Agile, you call it hybrid, or you call it or whatever you call it. The question is are there clear roles? Is there clear vocabulary? Is there some semblance of a process that people... It's like having a football team. You have to have a football team and you need to know what's your lineup. What's the strategy you're playing with?
There is a lot of discipline in Agile methods, and for certain tasks, they are the best thing you can do, I think. But there are other tasks where they are not.
So let's get back to your book on situational project management. What are some of the key statements that somebody that should and would and will buy your book get out of it? What are some of the key premises?
Enrich your methodical
So collect tools.
toolkit. Yeah,
Not artifacts, but
not artifacts. And by the way, we still call I still call them deliverables.
Yeah.
I prefer the old term here.
Yeah.
But artifact, and I have no idea why they write it with I. Normally you write it with an E. Yeah. That's another thing I don't understand. Yeah. So anyway, have more tools at hand. So in different situations, you are able to get your approach adjusted to the situation, because what helps you in one moment, what leads to success in one moment, may lead to failure in another one. And by the way, Agile and waterfall and in the middle something, rolling wave, this is not all. There is much more in that. It talks about greenfield and brownfield projects, which is completely different. And then one thing...
Construction projects versus IT projects?
I don't think industry matters that much. Industries have their cultures, of course, and they have their specific requirements, but I don't think industry matters that much. What matters is the project situation, the requirements on you, and you will find in different industries and in certain moments in projects, you find the same requirements. Maybe what you find in a software project for 2 months' time, you have 2 years' time in a construction project.
Which changes the situation once again.
Which changes the situation. There are some different priorities in there, and but in the end, it's always an organizational task, and this organizational task doesn't fundamentally change with the
Does your book just
industry.
explain the dilemma, or does it give a guideline of how to analyze it?
Gives guidelines.
So it tells you not, because this is one of my pet peeves. I have so many books I love reading, but so many books tell you what to do.
Analytic, but
not how to do it. And most people are like,
Yeah.
I already know what to do. Tell me how to do it, damn it.
For example, if you have a greenfield project, whether it is software or construction or engineering or whatever it is, if you have a greenfield project, it may be a good idea to have no stakeholder management. Keep everyone out. Keep everyone. If you have a brownfield project, where you have a lot of people around, software, you have an old system and you want to replace it with a new system, talk with people. Build trust with them, because if you send them away, if you send your stakeholders away, they will come back. They will bring their friends with
wisdom.
them.
I if I listen to you and I start kind of comparing it to my situational experience, I understand what you're talking about. Makes sense. And that's the differences, and that's the different approaches that are. And the other thing is, never ever talk, or never expect at least, that there is something like a best practice in project management. The same practice that is helpful in one moment, leads to success in one moment, fails in another one. We have to be didactically correct. The new term in the PMBOK guide is not good practice, right? I can pass the PMP. It's not best practice, it's good practice now.
But we had this since 1996.
Yeah?
It was already in the first PMBOK guide.
Okay. The good practice?
Good practice.
No, I remember there's
I know
best
it because
practice.
the author of the first book was my PMP trainer.
Okay.
Bill Duncan.
Okay. Bill Duncan,
Yeah,
very cool.
was my trainer.
Very cool. Now, you also wrote another book, which opens up another can of worms.
Yes. So what I start with situation and project management, what I start is with typologies. First of all, typologies of projects. Later, I notice it's not just the project. It may be a project situation. The same project may be in one typology dimension on the right-hand side at one moment, and on the left-hand at a later moment. So it's more about project situations, and therefore situational project management. And one of the things that really jumped into my eyes was a differentiation that we completely ignore in project management, and that's the differentiation between internal projects and customer projects.
Which is so blatantly obvious, but you're the first person, that's why I want to definitely have you on this podcast, because all trainers and consultants have to address it. And sometimes you feel like you have a split personality when you're talking to a client, because some clients will have like maybe 20% internal projects and 80% external, or the other way around, right?
Some have no customer projects at all. It's just internal. Everything what they do is internal.
And there is a significant difference.
On one side, on the internal project, the project manager manages a cost center, and in a customer project, the project manager manages a project,
well,
a profit center.
I say if you look at the classical lineup, whether it's Agile or waterfall, if you look at the classical waterfall setup of having a project manager, having a sponsor, having a core team, having internal end users, that's all internal. And if you have an external project, you can just not quite, but almost multiply that times 2 plus a salesperson. And a decision
person on the other side,
and a procurement department that's getting on your nerves, and payment modularity,
and a contract,
and a contract.
A contract. That's one of the big
big thing is the aspect of who's selling the project if it's an external project, right?
Absolutely, because there is a statement. Kirsner made a statement in one of his books. We don't have over-the-fence projects anymore. Over-the-fence means you have a department that makes a phase in a project. When they are finished, they throw the project over the fence. There's the next department. They do the next.
Since when does that not exist still?
He said it's no more existing.
Okay, just because he wishes it doesn't mean it doesn't.
It's in one of his books. Yeah. And I found...
then I take it back.
I found a company going bankrupt on that, by the way. Yeah, I had almost a customer. I didn't work for them then in the end because it doesn't make sense. Yeah, but they went bankrupt on that. No, but the interesting thing is in customer projects, you still find it because you have people who, in former times we said a salesperson. Today we call it business development.
Yeah.
It's in essence the same thing. So you have
customer relations manager, or there's all sorts of different names.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah. You have the business. I think that the most common term we have today is business development, and then we have delivery, which is also a strange word for that. Yeah, it's the project itself. So you have two people, you have two phases, if you like. And then you find out there is a deep gap between those two. And the interesting thing is, if you have a small company, if you look at a small company, you will find this is often one person. They have to sell the project and then run it.
Which is actually to their advantage.
Which I think is the much better approach, because someone has the total understanding, the total responsibility, accountability for the project from the first contact with the customer to the last payment.
Well, and maybe the biggest issue that the PMBOK always kind of conservatively and diplomatically discussed is the concept. It used to be called project management lifecycle. Now it's called project management process groups. Is the concept that project management begins with the idea and not with a kickoff or with a signed contract.
But that's exactly what you find in most of these companies that do customer projects.
Yes.
The contract is there. Now let's find a project manager.
It's sold by somebody else who gets a bonus for selling the project.
Exactly.
It's handed over last minute to the project manager who, as we say it in German, wie die Maria zum Kind. Like, the
Jungfrau.
Yeah,
Jungfrau zum Kind.
The Virgin Mary gets Jesus type thing. Talk about throwing across the fence.
Exactly.
And actually what the PMBOK guide has always tried to promote is that project management doesn't begin with a kickoff. It begins with the idea. Maybe not with the first idea, but with some formalized version of the idea.
But there's a problem. It ignores customer projects anyway. They don't turn up. It turns up in the 6th edition because there was actually a reviewer more than an author who said, we cannot fully exclude it. At least one statement must be there.
At least. So let's. Sorry. So what you've done, and this might sound silly, but etymologically, based on the concept of words have power. And if we constantly see things, but we don't have a name for them, we call it internal, external, but that's not really a sufficient.
It's customer projects.
Yes. So you've actually come up with a very distinct name for the color blue.
It's not my name. It's not my invention. It was around all the time.
I'm claiming you made it up. He invented it. Okay. So what's the term that you use for external projects? You talk
customer project.
Customer project.
Customer project.
But you have the term. Your book is called Project Business Management.
Yeah. The reason is when I started writing the book, the idea was to look at that from the contractor side, because no one has done that before by the time. Meanwhile, there are 2 books looking at that. I think mine is still the better one. Sorry, Ian. If you see this video.
Hi, Ian.
But I noticed I'm talking about an interface. And if you want to understand an interface, and it begins with understanding. Before you can give people some recommendations, you have to understand the situation. Yeah. Otherwise, and people are not prepared for that. So I noticed when I want to talk about the interface, I have to look at that from two sides. One side is the contractor side. Then I found out we have another shortage in the other direction. In Germany, we have an old term that's called extended workbench. It comes from automotive industry.
Yep.
What it means is I work as a I work as a production manager, first of all, at a company like Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, and so on. And the normal process is to make things by ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes a production manager may say, or some other manager in the organization may say, hey, we have to buy this from outside the organization from several reasons, maybe cost, or we don't have the know-how and the knowledge to do that, and so on. So what they would have to do is to justify that they buy it from outside. Why should we buy it from outside? This is value creation.
Buy instead of make. Yeah.
Exactly, that's the topic.
Yeah.
Make or buy decision. And so they would normally go for making because they want to keep the business in the house.
They have to justify their own resources.
And they have need a justification to buy instead. Yeah. Today, if you look at production in, for example, automotive, it goes the opposite direction. Today, if you want to make it inside the own organization, you have to justify that. The normal way is there are so many contractors out there.
OEMs.
They are so
original
capable,
equipment manufacturers.
And they are so affordable and so on. Why do you want to put a burden on the own organization?
Why make your own keys if you can buy them from...
Exactly.
By the way, Austrian company, very famous, Magna, is specialized on that. Yeah.
Magna is an example for that. Yes, exactly. And so they have then... They call it supply chains. I would call it supply networks because it's not just orderly chains. It's very confused, at least in project management. And then I noticed we have the same problem. This situation where you have networks of contractors, this situation is not described in our literature. The PMBOK guide still, between the lines, assumes that procurement is more an exceptional situation. We have to justify it. Yeah, it is not. It was the last last knowledge area over 20 years or so. Then another one was put after that, stakeholder. But it's still at the end. It's not at the beginning. So
and it's something that a lot of project managers have a hard time dealing with because they're not involved.
Now let me give you an example. My daughter, we talked at the car today about my daughter. She's trainer too, very much in agile methods and team building and these things. She is in a she does training.
Give her a shout out. What's her name?
Antje Lehmann-Benz.
Look her up.
If you need a
LinkedIn.
very good, not good, very, very good agile trainer, Antje is the best you can find. Yeah.
But still waterfall's better. Just kidding.
No.
Just kidding.
She trains the screwdriver. If you have a screw in front of you, please. Yeah, otherwise you're screwed. Okay. No, but she told me she was in an automotive company and she had some managers and trained these managers in team building 2 days and motivation and inspiration, all these things. And at the end, they approached her and said, Antje, this is also interesting what you're telling us, but this is not what we are doing. We work almost exclusively with contractors and it's their job to do that. Our job is to have contracts with them to make sure that they deliver the right thing at the right time, that payments are going right, and so on. Yeah, we have nothing to do with the people working here.
Can I give you some feedback? Because
yes.
I'm having my eyes are opening. I was preparing for this, and I was convinced I know exactly what we're talking about, and we are talking about the same thing. When you talked about external projects, I thought of companies like SAP. They have external projects. I think of Siemens, 362. 3,621 projects worldwide delivering, generators,
customer projects.
So that's what I was thinking about. But what you're talking about is actually a middle area, which makes total sense because when VW makes a new production line, that's an internal project. But the very fact that they have so many external vendors makes it actually a classical business.
On the other side, it's project business from the other side.
So you're not just talking about external projects in the sense of I'm delivering external to a client who's paying me money to deliver a scope, but also if I have a complex program or project for new product development and I have 25, 30 different interfaces.
Let's talk about programs. What is the original meaning of the word program? If you look at the program standards and at all the program management all the program management experts that we have in our they all have an understanding. Yes, you have a program inside the organization. This consists of projects. They may consist of sub-projects and so on, but it's all inside the organization. What is it originally? When NASA does a project, when Department of Defense, you're American, US Department of Defense does a project, does a program. UN
almost never uses the word project. They almost always use the word program.
And how much do they do themselves in that? They contract out almost everything. They don't keep much in their own premises and in their they don't have factories where they could do that. They go to Lockheed, they go to Grumman, they go to Jet Propulsion Laboratories,
they go to IBM, they go to Booz Allen Hamilton,
and so on. Exactly.
They go to whoever.
They don't do it. Program is a term coming from project business, where you say, I have lots of contractors in my.
See, what you're saying rings true, but now you're making me look at it new, because the formal, simple terminology of a program is a set of projects that, when managed together, create a higher yield. But I tell you why the UN and all UN organizations and NASA talks about programs. I'm telling you the number one reason is because of this temporary bullshit that projects have. Projects have a far too short life cycle. Ding, ding, ding. It's my clock.
Does it have no airplane mode?
No, the thing that I think one of the reasons why programs are so necessary is because ultimately, what you're also talking about when you're talking about 5A is the concept of product management. Product management is what initiates projects. But projects are often not long enough to cover the time span required to get big things done. And what a program basically is a much, much more elongated life cycle, which is also, if you look at the discipline Agile that PMI is promoting now, this in-between area, this gray area that's not line management, but not project management.
Yeah, but there we have a problem. And the problem is, for the program done with contractors, there's not just a project life cycle, there's a contract life cycle, because it is temporary. There may be some additional business later, servicing things and so on, but the contract is limited in duration. So in the end, we have projects there, but the projects are not done by these organizations. And then we have another problem. Artemis Orion program at the moment. You have NASA and ESA, European Space Agency, working together, and both have a prime contractor. Prime contractor for NASA is Lockheed, and Lockheed works under cost reimbursable time and material contract. Airbus, on the other side, is the prime contractor of ESA, and they work under fixed price contract, because this is the tradition in Europe and most of the rest of the world. It's fixed price contract. In the US, we have a long-standing tradition, or you have a long-standing tradition.
Thanks, it's mine.
Of variable price contracts. And now you have
which is, I think, more honest.
I think both have their advantages and disadvantages. But the interesting thing now is you have 4 organizations involved, plus lots of subcontractors and so on, of course. But you have 4 main organizations. Each of them has its own business interests. Each of them has different types of contracts that they have with you. You have a partnership contract between ESA and NASA, and then you have prime contracts, and they work differently. So everyone has a different business interest in the project. And this is where the big problem comes. When you have such a complex situation, everyone has another business interest that may collide with those of others.
So in the same vein as your first book, this book deals with this concept of programs, internal projects that have multiple external vendors, and classical external client projects.
Exactly.
Okay. And it goes through the framework, it goes through foundational concepts.
First of all, the understanding what are the roles that we have, because we have lots of more roles than what you said earlier. Yeah. Banks may be part of that. Insurance companies, surety providers, for bid bonds, performance bonds, and so on. Yeah, people have to understand.
Yeah, most people. I mean, if you have you done any work in GCC in Dubai or in Emirates, they have a very interesting. Also, the very concept of a project charter, which is theoretically based on the PMBOK guide, the first document you're supposed to create. Who creates a charter? You have a request for proposal. In German, we have the wonderful document, which is a little more difficult to translate. Lastenheft, Pflichtenheft, which in English, if I get it correct, is statement of work and specification.
No, scope statement.
Scope statement, yeah. I know some companies that use specification, but I agree with you. I think scope statement.
Different
I think scope statement is a better term.
Pflichtenheft,
but the very concept, most people don't understand that. And then you have a signed contract. What do I need a charter? I have a contract from the client.
No. You need a charter.
Oh, I want to hear this.
If you are on contractor side, you need an authorization from a certain size of the organization. Not if you had in a little 10 person agency, there you don't need that. If your boss tells you do it, then you do it. Yeah?
So you would do it in addition to a contract that you have.
In addition, yes, of course. You have a contract which connects two organizations. The project charter is an internal document. So on the contractor side, you have to have your project sponsor. Oh, on the customer side, ideally, you also have a project manager and a project sponsor. Absolutely. So you need the project charter on both sides. Yeah. And a lot of things,
I like that way of thinking.
Yeah. And a lot of things are now possibly twice there. Kickoff meeting, you talked about a kickoff meeting. Kickoff meeting, most people confuse it with onboarding meeting, by the way.
I like that word, onboarding. I call it a kickstart or a startup meeting.
But it's not the same thing. Kickoff meeting is on the field.
No, I don't call it kickoff. Kickoff is, I always say, is the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of execution. I call it a kickstart.
Yeah, let me.
Or a sprint zero sometimes in Agile.
I like kickoff very much. I like this term kickoff very much. But I think if you have a customer project, you may have to have two kickoff meetings. One kickoff meeting is together with a customer, because for a lot of things that you're going to do, you need their agreement. Yeah, you will disrupt operations. The operational disruption, the other big thing that no one talks about in project management. It's such a huge topic that we have all the time, and it's one of the reasons why we have difficulties with operations, with functional people, because we disrupt them. Yeah? We put something in their way. Yeah? So we need this with the customer, because they have to agree to the way how we do the project. And then we need a second kickoff meeting internally on contractor side. Internally, there we talk about how we want to make money. And making money has two aspects here. One aspect is profitability. Hang on, there's one more thing. Liquidity. Liquidity is often the big killer. It's not profitability. My profit is profitable, but most of the time we lay out money for the customer. Yeah? So in the books, we are loss making most of the time. Yeah? It may be the last payment of the customer that turns the project.
I will tell you one thing that external projects have a benefit over internal projects is that your return of investment actually does happen at the end of the project.
Exactly.
Which doesn't happen.
Or not.
Yeah. Or not, depending on what your contraction. But also what you're talking about, I often say this: if you're good at project management, you start off with internal projects. But if you really want to learn it, you have to understand that external projects are times 2, times 3 in factor of difficulty because of the complexity that's added in particular when we're talking about that word configuration management. Do you want to give the people who don't know what the hell configuration management is a definition?
It takes too long.
I'll give you an attempt. Based on the PMBOK guide, the word configuration has to do with requirements.
PMBOK guide doesn't understand it.
Okay. I'll leave it there. Is the concept that you have multiple stakeholders that have different requirements and different needs, and configuration management is the attempt to kind of align those so that you're not conflicting.
Part of that. I think it's much, much more than that. Yeah. The biggest element is that you protect your project from the complexity trap. Complexity trap is you have a software or a machine or a building or whatever. Yeah? You search for errors in that and you find 10 errors. You fix the error, search for errors again and find 10 again, or 11 or 12 or 15 or so. When you cannot resolve the problem with errors by finding them and fixing them, you get new errors every time you fix something. You have new errors from somewhere else, just created it. Yeah? Or maybe it's the first time that you see it. If you're in this situation, you're in a complexity trap. So what you need is fallback solutions.
Okay.
And this is the most important thing in configuration management, that you have fallback solutions. If there is a risk that you get lost in complexity, that you can go back to a safe place and start again from that. That's the biggest.
A reboot.
Yeah, a reboot from an interim position, a reboot of the last 4 weeks or so. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that you have audits in that you have configuration audits. The nearer an error is found to its origin, the easier and cheaper and quicker it is to fix it. The far away it is found.
Quality assurance instead of quality control.
So exactly, and so they have audits. It's not quality audits; it's configuration audits. But the idea is to find and fix the errors before they drive you into trouble. Yeah. And that's configuration management mostly. And in a customer project, this may be helpful, but I think it's also something for internal. I wouldn't see here a difference. Yeah. But where I see the difference, where I agree with you, is complexity goes up because on top of project management knowledge, you need legal knowledge. You need a bit of commercial knowledge. You need psychological knowledge. You have to work for people you never met before. Yeah. You go to the customer and you have no idea how it works and what the processes are. And
you have their culture and their different egos, the different structures.
Exactly. In your own organization, you're somehow familiar with the project environment. If you do a customer project, it may well be that you're completely unfamiliar with this environment. And then the other thing is, but there's a flip side here. You have a benefit on your side, and that's your reputation. The reputation of a project manager in customer project, it is much, much higher because you bring money home. You are the one who brings money home.
Have you heard this? I once heard this in an internal project when an internal project manager was arguing with a line manager about a resource. The line manager looks at the project manager and says, you can't have the resource because projects spend money, and I'm a line manager, I make money. And with external project, that's not the fact.
With customer projects, you are the one to bring the money home. Exactly. And the other thing is, you work under contract. So if you don't do your job right, your company runs into a breach of contract situation. And there are no more many things that are sacred to people. For most people, unfortunately not all, but for most people, contracts are somewhat sacred because we all know the problems that we will have if we don't stick to a project. The poorer the legal system is, the effectiveness of the legal system is, the less people.
Well, I think also I think it's also a cultural issue worldwide.
Cultural is very important.
Some of the most wonderful cultures are sometimes some of the most difficult ones to get along with on a contractual basis because everything is on such a friendly basis until things start going wrong, or I want to, as we say in German, an extra Wurst, an extra sausage, or a change request that I want for the same budget in the same time. That's when things start getting difficult.
That's exactly where it begins. You have to make a clear distinction between what is refinement, what is still inside the scope, that is part of the contract, and what is really change requests.
So, but you've done something that is actually quite impressive, because if you look at the PMBOK guide and all the books that go along with it, there's 3 books altogether now, which is fairly complex already. You've had the courage to go one step further and say, but you're talking about projects in a generic sense. I'm going to talk about the real complexity. I'm going to talk about external projects, which makes it exponentially more complex. And you've built a book around it. But you don't just have a book, you also have an education program that's dedicated to teaching. And, interesting, I'd like to hear that, you have a certification for it as well, right?
That's right. But the beginning of that is I have a little think tank.
Yeah.
It does not have to be a one-person think tank, so you are invited to join me there. But at the moment, it is a one-person think tank, so I have to tank a lot here. Yeah. And it's called the Project Business Foundation. The Project Business Foundation is where I do some, let's call it market research. It's not really scientific. It's on a market.
Well, most studies in project management are not scientific.
Anyway, exactly. Yeah. So it's more market research. And things like make or buy decisions. What is the tendency in make or buy decisions? And the trend is very strong, going away from make towards buy. Yeah. And I had 2 surveys on that, and international surveys, and both had the same result. There is 2 times more people, more than 2 times more people who said our trend is going towards buy than people who said our trend is going towards make. Then I do some other research. For instance, what is payment? What are people paid? In internal projects and in customer projects. Project managers, do they get paid less or more in customer projects? And on the first glance, internationally, more or less the same, no big difference, nothing exciting. But then you go into the details and you find out poor paying countries, Latin America, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and so on. Project managers in internal projects are better paid, significantly better paid
than external ones,
than those in customer projects.
Interesting.
In our environment, Europe, USA, and so on, Western countries, which are generally paying much higher, Canada and so on. There, the project managers in customer projects are better paid.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. It was so surprising. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And again, I did it twice. So my question was, okay, what does it tell me? And my interpretation, my assumption is, in cheaper countries, work is outsourced to make it cheaper. Work is outsourced to contractors to make it cheaper, so they don't have much money, cannot afford an expensive project manager.
Yeah.
In our environment, companies outsource work because they hope to get better results than internally. So the requirement on the contractor is, we want good people to do the project and to run the project, of course, to manage the project. So they have to pay more for that. And this was interesting because that's the most important cultural difference that I found here. Apart from that, everything is very similar.
Interesting.
And that's an interesting thing. And as soon as you start going into details, there is so much what you can find. There is so much new information. No one ever asked these questions.
Yeah.
And once you start asking the questions,
you get interesting answers.
You get interesting and surprising answers. Really surprising answers.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about that and learn something about that. So that's the idea with the think tank.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I have some resources there that I offer people. For instance, a glossary, a project business glossary in English, so that you can work with different companies together using the same terminology. Yeah. One of the top 5 causes of project trouble in project business is just misunderstandings. They use the term stakeholder, and they mean someone completely different in here. So that's one thing. Then there is a code of conduct. I think it's important, if you have a project with several organizations involved, you should have a code of conduct for your project. So
I call it the rules of the game.
Rules of the joint rules of the game. That's
Agree on the rules. Are we playing chess or are we playing checkers? What are we doing?
And the thing is, if you look at a families who do board games, they stick together much better. Even if they are competing during the game, they have the same rules. They have the same rules. So that's the point here, that you have a rule set that is the same for everyone, all the companies involved. And then I have 2 certifications there. One is for a consultant educator, that's ACE. By the way, I went myself through the same process. I had someone assessing me, so when I say I'm certified for that, it's not just stealing it or it's not make-believe. I really went through this process myself. So I expect some presentations from a person. Could be an article, it could be a video, whatever it is. Could be a PowerPoint.
So you have 2 levels. You have one for the
level.
business, the project business manager for external projects.
I would say the consultant and the educator, so the expert level, not the practitioner. And the other one is for the practitioner.
So that was the first level is the practitioner, and then the second one is
the lower level is the practitioner, exactly. And that's a 2-day seminar. At the end of the seminar, we have a test. I had, I think now, 25 or so people going through that, 30 something in this number. And so this is something I'm now building up. This is something which is relatively new, and the first groups were to some degree also pilot groups. The very first group was a pilot group.
Well, I think it's a brilliant concept, and I would love to, if you're interested in my opinion on it, gladly.
Absolutely.
And we'll do some. We'll be coming back with some more information on that in future sessions.
It's so interesting because no one talks about that. No one is there, and it's billions of euros, dollars around the world.
I think also making it more aware also to senior and executive management is important, because so many companies rely on project management as a delivery system for the product, for the complex products that they sell. I think it's definitely something worth looking at.
Yeah, and we have much more. We have projects that have no product at all in that. Think of basic research. This is also handed out to contractors. If you go to pharmaceutical industry, product development is almost no more possible internally. It takes too long. It's too expensive.
I have a client that has 10-year projects.
Yeah, that's normal in product development there because you have these phases, and then you have the gates with government agencies,
approval,
with approvals, yes, exactly, and it takes a lot of time to get these approvals, so it takes very long. I'm currently involved with one company that does exactly that. They are just
fascinating, Another example of situational project management.
It's incredible how much money they spend for that. And that's the problem with the big companies. Smaller companies are much quicker here. They still have to go through the same process, but inside these processes, they are much, much quicker. And if something goes wrong, to let a small company go bankrupt over that is hurtful for a small group of people. But to let a big group of companies, a big name, go bankrupt.
I recently saw a statistic. I don't know who came up with it. Don't believe any statistic you didn't make up yourself. But it sounded legitimate. I think the classical statistic is 38 to 40% of projects are successful, whatever that means, in scope, in time, in budget, plus or minus 10%. Only 8% of large projects are in scope, in time, in cost, plus or minus 10%. And of those large projects, I think the statistic was up to somewhere between 10 to 20% of the large project actually endanger the future of the company.
This could be, but I would be very careful with the statistics because the question is, what is their criterion? One of the other frustrations why I wrote my first book was the chaos report, which comes up with such numbers.
Standish Group.
And exactly, Standish Group. And sorry, Standish Group, if you listen to that. But
no, they should hear this.
They should hear that. The criterion, at least when I wrote my book, I think that they haven't changed it yet, is did the project fulfill the original requirements, expectations, and so on? And then my question is, okay, how likely is it that the expectations, requirements, the product ideas at the beginning are still the same at the end of the project?
That's another.
And if your project requirements change over the course of the project and you meet the original requirements, that could be failure.
I would go even a step further because you talked about this with phase gate or stage gate. Is a project that is killed during a phase gate a success or a failure?
It is neither a success nor failure.
I would see it
not
more
necessarily.
I would see if you're smart enough, and excuse my language, have the balls to make a decision. I would see it as a success before I spend.
Typically, in a phase gate, it's not killed by your management. It is killed by some kind of government agency. And this is a failure on the stock exchanges. So if you have a pharmaceutical company and their project, their development project, product development is killed during a phase gate, you see their shares, their share value going down dramatically.
I think the statistics in pharmaceutical, only 10% of the products developed in pharmaceutical research and development actually make it to market.
I have no idea.
It's somewhere between 8 to 10%. But they make so much money with those 8 to 10%, it's part of the game. It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah, but the big companies cannot afford this anymore because it's getting so expensive to go through all these processes. Yeah, of course, they have some kind of pipeline here, some kind of roadmap, what they want to develop, and then they know maybe it's 1/10 of them. Yes, of course. But on the other hand, look at business development. What is the typical hit rate? That's an interesting question. What is the typical hit rate of a contractor in project business? It is about 10% because you have 3 competitors. One is the competitor, of course. The second is that the customer says, now we got 3 offers, proposals, from vendors, potential, prospective contractors say, now we know how to do that. Let's do it by ourselves. And the third competitor is that the customer thought, okay, we will find someone who does it for us for 1 million euros.
It's cheaper.
And now the cheapest offer is 2 million that they say, hey, doesn't pay back that time. We cannot afford that.
Actually, quite honest, I think that's also a success if you have enough transparency to say, listen, this is out of our budget, before I spend the money.
Absolutely. And then you do not win the business because there is no more business there at all. And by the way, my oldest example for that, Are you aware of Giacomo Casanova?
Of course.
Yeah, the womanizer, the famous. Do you know what his job was? His profession?
No.
He was a project contractor.
No!
Really? What he did was to travel to the different kings and queens and so on of his time, yeah, and to offer them lotteries. Yeah, he told them, you all have problems with your money.
Yes,
yeah, so
taxation
I'll make a
money.
lottery and it will bring you a lot of money into your cash. And I like to have some of that, but I work as a contractor for you.
I didn't know that.
And he did it with Catherine the Great in Russia. And he also tried it with Frederick the Great, Frederick II of Prussia. Yeah. And Frederick the Great said, okay, now that Casanova was here and explained us what he's going to do with us, now we know how to do it and do it by ourselves.
Smart. We have one more topic.
Yes.
That we talked about beforehand that I definitely want to get to spend some time on, and that is the hot topic of the age, AI, artificial intelligence.
Yes.
What's your connection to AI?
I'm currently in a submarine project. That's all I can say about that at the moment. And it will be, I hope, it will be interesting and fascinating. But what I can tell you is what the pain point is that we are going to address. And the pain point are 3 Ps. The first, not what you think. The first P stands for polluting. What we find is that a lot of data that AI is based on is simply polluted with poor information. The AI, the people driving AI forward, whether it is ChatGPT or their customers, Grammarly and LinkedIn now and many others, PMI is on this way too, I think. What they do is they collect a lot of data and think, okay, the more data we have, the better the responses of AI will be. And the problem is when you get a lot of data without really data scrubbing, without cleaning them, you have a lot of pollution.
Or having some kind of evaluation process or vetting process, which is time consuming and expensive.
Exactly. I found that out. What I recommend everyone in this business to do is to go to ChatGPT and ask a question in the prompt. Who is, in my case, who is Oliver Lehmann? And then I looked at the results and I found out, okay, some is right, some is polluted, wrong. I was an author of certain books that I never wrote. I am the manager of a company. I know the company. We have no business connection with each other, and so on. So there were some good information, some very flattering information, and some false information. Now the problem is for a normal user, you cannot separate that. You cannot say, okay, this is valid and this is invalid. When you ask for yourself, the good thing is you know what is wrong. There is no question about that. Then I had the idea to correct that. Then I asked myself, can you correct that? So I told ChatGPT, okay, Oliver Lehmann did not write this book, but wrote another book. And he's not managing this company. He's self-employed. And then a message came back, sorry for that. It really said sorry, and very polite. And then changed that, and I asked the question about myself again. And with 2-3 steps like that, all the errors came out. But this led me to a question. Not just pollution, but poisoning as the third thing.
People are afraid of that's the
you have a customer. You're bidding for a customer, and I'm bidding for the customer. We both want to do seminars, and the customer will only take one of those two. So what I could do is go into ChatGPT and write a lot of bad stuff into ChatGPT about Mark Engelhardt, and Mark Engelhardt does the same about me. He knows the customer asks ChatGPT who is Oliver Lehmann, and then he writes some nasty things about me, how many projects I did, or seminars and projects I did wrong, and so on. And then the customer sees that and thinks, okay, this Mark Engelhardt, no, we shouldn't take this guy if you look at that. And Oliver Lehmann, it's even worse. I'm sure you can do this much better poisoning than I can.
Well, I think what you're referring to, I think a lot of people aren't aware of this, is that I think there's a lot of discussion. I recently saw a podcast where somebody was saying that ChatGPT or similar AIs have the potential of relieving Google. And it reminded me of the fact that actually AI's capability is strongly dependent on the big data that you find in Google.
Exactly.
And I think there's a cultural fear. I think one of the greatest assets of our generation is that for the first time in the history of mankind, we have literally information at our fingertips. And I think it scares the hell out of certain people.
But the problem is that a lot of this information is not true, and you cannot really say which is which.
But what unfortunately came up is because I think the truth is sometimes painful. And I think a lot of people, for multitude of political, economical, or competitive reasons, have poisoned or polluted this big data, and
then we have pipe dreaming as the third problem. Is the third P here, that when this AI software doesn't know the answer, then it makes something up, like me running a company. I don't run this company. So this is the problem that we have, and we have to address the problem.
So the three words, I like them. The three P's are poisoning, polluting, and
pipe dreaming.
Pipe dreaming, yeah.
Pipe dreaming.
Creating pipe dreams.
Ps. Yeah. Originally I thought it's fantasizing, but then I noticed.
Well, in German,
fantasizing in English is with an F.
Yeah.
In Germany it would be a P, but in English it's with an F. So I had to replace it with pipe dreaming. But it means the same thing. And the problem is that we need good data, not just big data. And this is where the problem is. We have too much big data, and you don't know which of that is good data and which is not.
Let me ask you another question, because we're focused kind of on projects, programs, portfolios, PMOs. What value does AI have for people that are working projects?
It saves a lot of time.
In what? For example, give me some example.
When I want with our submarine project, you want to write a letter to your customer, hey, if you go on paying that late, we will not be able to make you satisfied because we cannot afford that. Or you want to send a letter to your contractor saying, hey, these deliveries are so late, we have a problem with you and the quality is not good enough, and so on.
So it can help you with your communication flow, sometimes called workflow.
It would cost me about 3 hours to write such a letter, because when I want to write such a letter, I want to be diplomatic, but I want also to be some kind of assertive, not too pushy, find the right words. And this is where it's very, very helpful. It gives me a template, and I still work on the template. I don't use it as it is, but it saves me of these 3 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And that's a lot. It increases my productivity. Then it helped me with English. I've been a Grammarly user, paid account, for some years now, and I wrote 2 English books. And I think my English wasn't that bad, my English in writing. But I could really improve it with Grammarly. What I found today now is, when I ask Grammarly for some recommendations, my English is better. My written English, written English, which is still different to the spoken English. So you learn something from them. They are good teachers for a certain period of time. But as with every teacher, at one point in time, the student excels the teacher. And so this happens here as well. But it's the time saving. That's one thing. Then the other important thing is, if you have you often have non-native staff who has to write English. So it helps them to write
with communication
better.
So you see the primary function of the AI in the management of communication and the acceleration of communication.
Increasing the productivity in communication, which is, by the way, a dangerous thing, because more will be communicated. Then it can help you to develop some outlines and some summaries of a long text.
We're going to need AI to read it for us, because I always say this is the only thing that I find a little bit questionable. Everybody says, AI will help you write. My question is, most people don't want to read nowadays. Who's going to read it?
AI will read it for you and will give you a summary of that. But the problem is, again, did it really find those points that are relevant for you? It finds the points that the AI considers relevant. It may not be. If you read a text and I read a text, you will point out, hey, this is interesting, and I will say, no, this is far more interesting, and this is far more interesting. We will look at different, and now the AI, it has no real opinion, and it has no moral compass. That's the other thing. So it doesn't really know what is really important for you and what is important for me.
Do you see AI as in anytime soon also being helpful in the analysis of projects, in evaluating projects, or maybe if we go back to configuration, do you think that AI would be able to help you with configuration management?
Nope.
No?
Because it is not sufficiently aware of context.
Okay.
Situations, part of the situational thinking.
So you see AI more to help us with the menial things that take forever, to do,
repetitive
but
things,
not necessarily with the complex cognitive things.
It will help you with style. It will help you in speed. It will not help you in the things where you really need a human brain.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I cannot. It cannot hold hands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it would do that, you would be very, very careful. Hey, suspicious. What does this computer want of me? Yeah. Hell 2001. What is a Space Odyssey? Yeah. They get very, very careful about this computer because it has its own ideas.
So your submarine project is you're working on something that has to do with project management, and it's AI.
It has something to do with project business.
Very good. Interesting. We'll call you back when it's going to be ready.
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea.
It's one of those Agile projects.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
The question is, that's a pet peeve of mine. I'm a gamer girl, and gaming is one of the most growing industries money-wise.
This is an important thing. We have projects that are not business projects in software because we have software projects for gaming. It's one of my other examples that I often bring when we talk about project business and we talk about project management. What about all those projects that have nothing to do with business? Yeah. PMI wants CAPMs, starters, beginners, to do a certificate where 22% or so of questions comes from business analysis. If you come from gaming, how much knowledge of business analysis do you need for that?
Yeah.
Zero.
It's just like if you're a professional mountain climber, right? One of the Huba Buben from Bavaria, they don't do a business analysis why they climb the mountain.
Absolutely.
They just know that. But what was your question?
The question was, how can it be that games come out and any other software comes out in an immature condition, not finished, and then gets finished while people work with
Come on, use the Agile BS word. It's minimum viable product.
It is, I would say, actually, Agile has an answer to that. They say, hey, you have a certain time frame. We will deliver inside the time frame. We will deliver inside the budget, but we cannot promise you what you will get. By the way, there is no Agile method described for customer projects. They all assume, especially Scrum, that everything is done internally. And even with gaming, a lot is today contracted out to small developer teams, developer groups, self-employed individuals. They do work for this gaming company. The problem is very simple. You have a specific amount of money made available for this project. You have a specific amount of time made available for that. And now the project is running out of money, is running out of time, but they think it is good enough to bring it on the market. So they take what they have, bring it on the market, and say, okay, now money will come in. This will allow us to get some new budget, to get some extra time.
And then
If you want to finish this by 100% and make it perfect, it may never come out, and they may not be able to afford that because from this product, they don't get an income. They have to create the income to improve it further. And sorry, that's software business. That's not project business, that's software business.
I would go even a step further. I think the first companies that found this out, no matter how good they thought their products were Microsoft is a good example. They would bring out their new batches, and then there was a whole army of devotees that would scour the code and say you made a mistake here and this is buggy, and they would offer solutions. So I think a lot of the gaming companies kind of picked up on that.
It's time to market, and it's working against fixed budgets. Yeah. And if you exceed the budget, the business model they calculated for the game does no more work. They had an expectation. This is what it will cost to make the game. This is how much money we were going to make with this game. And now if it's getting too expensive, they don't see the number of games coming. And what we see then as a problem is going the other way around, because the poor quality of the software damages the other part, the income part of the game, because people don't buy it because the reviews are so bad. But this is something that many managers have difficulties to understand. And this is where I would see a project manager with business acumen. This is the thing that we have to learn to get, is business acumen.
Well, I think we get back to this.
They have to bring this to management and say, hey, if we go out with this product as it is, we will not have the other side, the income side.
I think what you're basically talking about is what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast with the concept of situational
Exactly.
project. You have to know when do I deliver my if you have, for example, a product that is well known and you come up with a new version and it's buggy, people will accept it because there's a following. But if it's a new product and you do that, you're screwed. Oliver, it's been a blast. It's been a blast. So I knew why I wanted you here, and you've proven just as interesting as I thought you would be. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to staying in touch with the different topics that you have here. For all you viewers out there, we'll make sure to put all the links to the books and all future projects.
And to the Project Business Foundation.
Yeah, and to the Project Business Foundation. If you're interested in that, definitely look that up. Okay? Thanks a lot for listening in.